Kumbing kundi. Kan. Tanang. Tanang. Kumbing.
You can continue playing, Lynn. You can continue playing the kubing.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Tigalog nga. Oo,
Okay na, Lynn. Okay, Lynn. Tama na.
Okay, ma'am. Kada. Nabuta na. Langat ang saktulan ako.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for our very first episode of Rinayung, our web series here at Ginding Sindaw. And for those who don't know, Rinayung is actually the magical boat of Bantugan from the Durangan epic. And for those who are not familiar with our web series, this is one of the best opportunities for you, no matter where you are in the world, to learn more about, the Philippine diaspora, specifically looking at indigenous folks in the Philippines and tying it to the struggles of other indigenous folks all over the world. Also a great way to look at Philippine culture in a way that's not maybe commonly taught in schools. And maybe these are things that, you just learn, not or things that you don't get to learn growing up. So in any way, it's a best way to immerse yourself, especially during these challenging times of COVID-19. So on today's first episode, we are actually going to be hearing from some of our very own family members here in Ginding Sindaw. So we can move on to the next slide. Just so I can give you all a brief rundown. So my name is Jerome Valoria. I am one of the co-hosts of the Rinayung web series of Ginding Sindaw, and my co-host is Vivian Chow. If she wants to wave real quick.
Yes,
Awesome.
I do. I have a green screen, so my hand went in and out. But hi, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Viv. And then I'll also give a quick shout out to our funders. We'll have a land acknowledgement as well from one person from the Philippines and one from here in the United States. Vivian's going to go over some of the guidelines for folks joining us on Zoom as well. And then we have two guest speakers tonight. We have Antonio Del Rosario and Loida Nicholas Lewis. We'll have some room at the end for some question and answer, and then we're going to wrap it up with some closing announcements. and our salutation. So tonight we want to give, as always, a quick shout out to our funders. First and foremost, we have the Lloyd and Nicholas Lewis and Reginald F. Lewis Foundation. We have La Mama Experimental Theater Club, which is an organization at which we've been resident artists for quite a while. We have NYC Cultural Affairs, or the Department of Cultural Affairs. We have Lotus Music and Dance, who's one of our long-standing community partners, who supported us for virtually the entire time that we've existed. We also have New York City Council, the Howard Gilman Foundation, NYFA, or the New York Foundation of the Arts, Dance NYC, and Kidney Care of the Treasure Coast. So again, without these funders, without their support, we would not be able to do the things that we've done in the past and what we continue to do for the community. So thank you very much. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you. Right. So before we kick off the night, we do want to also do lang acknowledgement. We'll be asking Teresa Bearfox to help us on behalf of that. Give me 1 second. There we go.
Okay. Am I on?
Yes, you're on. We can see you.
Okay. Okay. Sego Zawagwego. Hello, everyone. It's good to be here with all of you. I'd like to share a song that came to me, and what I'm saying in the Mohawk language. I'm from Akwesasne, and my Mohawk name is Gankyokokta. It means I'm at the back of a crowd of people, and I am from the Wolf Clan. And the song I'm going to share with you all is a water song. And we're going to put all our minds together and sing a song. What we're saying in the song is that we love the waters and that the water is precious. All types of waters, from the rain to the snow, to the mist, dew. And so that's what it means. Kahne Kalunya means all types of waters. So I hope you like the song. And I hope our waters are always clean. And here we go. Yung panalumpa oneka, yung panalumpa oneka, gas negalonyo, gas neganono, gaina uya heya. Yung panalumpa oneka, yung panalumpa oneka, gas negalonyo, gas neganono, gaina uya heya. Yo ho we ya he, yo ho we ya he, gas negalonyo, gas neganolo, gaina uya heya. Yung panalumpa oneka, yung panalumpa oneka, gas negalonyo, gas neganolo, gaina uya heya. Yo ho we ya he, yo ho we ya he, gas negalonyo, gas neganolo, gaina uya heya. Yo ho. I hope you like that song.
Yes, thank you so much for that.
Now we go. Now we go.
Yo.
And then we also have Lynn, 1 second here, adding the spotlight. She'll be helping us on behalf of acknowledging the ancestral lands back at home. So whenever you're ready.
Okay. I sing a prayer song in Tiboli, Adwata Holy Kamudo. And then after that, Kaya will follow me. Adwata Holy Kamudo, ni uton talona lumani tanakla put kumpun. Bantadu atulam dun kandangan tabal ipuy malagabag mahamlustun. Nilibog na lam ka fu matodok galun sa puso lagasutan at kabun o dwata holi ka mudu. Lingon tu sekali. Pendek udah. Kaya kena terbulu kaya lemongai dau. Ya Allah. Kaya kena terjalan kaya kelemi bahangan ha nene gemtu anuk no dan anuk cemala iheling kale anuk lebu lamai. Aku ada waktu lah kain mak sibumlaan kamam. Aku ada waktu lah kain mak sibumlaan tilam. Mak bulung kok kerenge matam ane ala ribuk nawam ane ala ribuk bulung. Hayo le ba no te wen ko chabala matam te wen ko chabala tam cho ko lo ko ma phang ho ko hum nu ka la pu nyu be ko chun ko mo la an ko e da ma de te na o bu chun cho ko lo ngon na wan. Thank you.
Right now, thank you
Bong
so much for
selamat.
that.
Bong selamat.
And then we do have Poetry, our art director, who would like to speak for 1 to 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Assalamualaikum. Sego for the Mohawk and Yulafos for the Tiboli people. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. This is our 2021 opening of Rinayong, and we're hoping that we will bring all the beauty, the resilience, the bounty, the health as we step into this year, and make us travel you, or make us bring you as we travel into the lives of our indigenous people, our national minority in the Philippines, the Muslim people in Mindanao. As you have seen, the beauty of the dances and the music and the culture, which is still a living tradition, but at this moment in time, it's very much threatened by the multinational companies that is actually allowed by our own puppet government in the Philippines. So hopefully, through our art, we bring that strength and spirituality. And welcome 2021. Travel with Rinayong. As Jerome said earlier, Rinayong is the magical boat of Bantugan from the Rangin Epic of the Maranao people. Assalamualaikum. Good evening. Please join us with our two luminaries to bring you the energy of the 2021 for Kinding Sindaw. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that, Poetry. So before we move further on in the night, I just wanted to bring up some guidelines so that everyone's on the same page about privacy and such. But this event is recorded and it is live on Facebook on our page. And then whatever is uploaded on Facebook will be in our Kinding Sindaw possession as well. It's not to be shared with the public, post the event or anything like that. It's just for our archives. So if you're not comfortable sharing your video or speaking during the event, that's just a heads up for you all. Another thing is some of the topics that we might be discussing in our events might trigger some things in people. And it's not in our intention to cause any negative or harmful reactions. But if it does bring up anything of that sort, there's me, Jerome, and Potri, who you can reach out to privately, and we can figure out how to progress better, so that when we have these events, it's good for the community, it's good for everyone. We do want to include everyone at all times. So in whatever way, shape, and form we can do to help that, definitely let us know. And then, as Jerome mentioned, there will be a questions portion at the end. Tonight, we are asking some of our members to also share their experience on their behalf as well. So don't be shy, please volunteer when that comes up. But if you do have any questions for the speakers or anything that is mentioned during this event, the chat is alive and well. Patty will be helping us go through that. Thank you for that. And then also, if you're comfortable, just, unmuting yourself and just asking the question on your own part, that's welcomed as well. So without further ado, I would like to start the night with the first speaker. Our first speaker is Antonio de Rosario. He is a board member for Sindaw, and he has been for 4 years now. He is an elected chair for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging to, or parenthesis, DEIB for real estate. And he is also for Scouts BSA. He received his master's in business and marketing and is raising 2 boys, Lucas and Leonardo, along with his wife, Christina, for 20 years in the Upper East Side. He is a top broker leading the ADR team of 10 people doing businesses in NYC, Hamptons, Florida, Europe, and the Philippines. He volunteers at St. Ignatius on Park Avenue, Sindaw, Shakespeare Street, and Invisible Hands Deliver. Currently, he is at Cornell University for diversity and equity education. So please give it up for Antonio.
Thank you, Vivian. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and just give me a thumbs up if you see. You see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Great. Well, I am honored to be here. I very much look up to all the people who came before me. That's literally and figuratively. And of course, the person I look up that's coming after me, which is Tita Loida. So I have big shoes to fill. In addition to that bio, thank you, Vivian, for that introduction. That was really kind of you. I just want to say that I'm honored to be here with you all after that terrorist attack at our Capitol. I think these kinds of conversations that we have, if we have more of these, it would really be avoided, that kind of attack in our democracy. If we protect the minority voices, the voices of the indigenous people all over the world, we would avoid that kind of white supremacy. I'll just call it like it is. It is that, and that kind of racism and the lies that fueled many people and actually created bloodshed. And bloodshed is being created right now all over the world, including in the south of the Philippines. And that's why I'm here. I just want to say that because it is comforting to be part of a community that is all about peace and sharing and multiculturalism. And we are richer for the diversity that we have. Having said that, I want to start with my name. It is, Shakespeare said, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. And is that true? If I were called a Muslim name, would people treat me the same way? I don't think so. You can tell from my name of the Rosary that it's of Del Rosario is very Spanish, and we are rooted in the Philippines by the Spanish colonialism. The land, the Catholicism, the schools I went to, all focus on that. The folk dances that I grew up in Seattle. I went to the Philippines a lot, but the big thing is I was only introduced to the Spanish part. I was never introduced to the colonial part, the pre-colonial part of the Philippines. Before the Philippines were massacred, the people were raped and pillaged, and then we were all just put together, and we're just going to now call you after King Felipe, and which is the king of Spain. And it wasn't until Kinding Sindaw I met Tita Potri, wanting to, of course, as a husband and father, my goal and duty, our duties for our families is to empower our children. I did not want my children to be disconnected to their roots. And not until I met Tita Potri and Kinding Sindaw did I know so much that was neglected in my past. It was all about the kind of racist colonialism, loving only the white part, the European part of my being Filipino. And that was, I owe that to Kinding Sindaw. So right there is the reason for all Filipino Americans, for all Americans, for anyone listening to this, that to join Kinding Sindaw. It just talks about the values of why Filipino indigenous people are important, because it promotes the idea that indigenous people must be protected. We can't get rid of the sins of our ancestors, right? Spanish and European. Here in the United States, I love the land acknowledgement in the beginning. It moves me that even in where I am right now, in the Upper East Side, in Manhattan, that comes from an indigenous people's language. It was stolen from them. You know, people say, "Oh, they sold it for a song." Manhattan was sold to the Europeans. And they didn't sell it at all. They wanted to share it because they're peaceful people, but they didn't sell it. So I want to start with that we, those of you who are Filipinos, many of you who are not, look at the roots of where you come from. You'll see that it is full of blood and sin against peaceful tribes and peaceful people. I am proud to be Catholic. I love the values I've learned being raised as Catholics. I raise my children as Catholics, but I also am not proud so many of the things that Catholicism, the sins that were committed in the past, including the imperialism, the invasion of so many of the Filipino indigenous tribes. My school, Tinikling, I've learned Tinikling at a very young age. I didn't realize Maria Clara, all those things. And you see this picture here, that could be me right there wearing a barong Tagalog, right? Very Spanish, celebrating only the European part of me and nothing about the native indigenous people that we all come from. Until we acknowledge where we come from, we cannot be at peace with who we really are. That's the diversity work. That's the belonging work. Until we have access to equity, then we cannot be fulfilled to truly who we are. That means also my career has been focused on that. Everything that I believe really was through the lens of being part Spanish. Never was I taught until Kinding Sindaw about the indigenous part, Filipino part of me that I am now very proud of, and my children are now very proud of. My wife, who's Italian, is very proud of it as well. And that is our goal and our duty to our families and our community, and indeed our duty to the world. How I look at this, and as Vivian mentioned, I am currently updating my educations, and I have my master's degree. Yes, I do diversity work and real estate. Yes, it is important that I say that permeates everything that I do. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. But I got my education at NYU 30 years ago. So I currently am Cornell University to update my education. And boy, it has been, woke did not exist before, right? That word woke, we called it multiculturalism, we called it pluralism, diversity, yes. But diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging did not exist before. So let's start with the buckets. I love, what buckets are you filling in your head? How do you counteract things that you don't know? Well, through education. And that's how I'm dealing with it. And that's my main goal in the next 10 minutes. We have our own racism, internal racism, and a Black woman, when I was at a young age, I'm 52 now, so 30 years ago, more than that now, Dr. Tanya Pettiford-Waits, she said to me, you want to be white. You act like you're white. You're like a coconut, right? Brown on the outside, white in the inside. So I said, no, I'm very culturally empowered. Then I realized through work with her that, yes, we prefer to be, mestizo, or all the Filipinos with their whitening creams. We are really not proud to be brown. That is right there is the problem. And is that bucket, you keep filling that bucket, that's what will empower you. The other bucket is Asian, and we're here in America, Latino, we're mistaken all the time. My children, are you Mexican? And I told them it is up to you to educate your peers. Because I, as a father, can only do so much. He said, no, not Mexican. I am Filipino, but we look like we could be Mexicans. We look like we could be Chinese. We could. It's so many multiracial facets in our culture, and that's a beautiful thing. But stop. I implore all of you, stop pushing the white part, the European part. I am Spanish. It's this internal racism that we have. Are we Pacific Islander? I remember my father telling me we're the brown race. In his generation, that's what they kept saying. And the other thing that in the third bucket, now this is the part where it gets a little confusing because there's so much going on. The indigenous people in the Philippines, there are 12 million of them. That's quite a lot. But if you ask our current government in the Philippines, they'll say it's only about 4 million, right? It's 5% of the population. It's not. They're excluding Muslims. And there you go. That's the problem. It's this Islamophobia, right? It's like saying Tinikling or Maria Clara is connected to Spanish. Muslim is not connected to, it happened to be, sure, their religion. But the more I learned through King Sindaw, it's like, oh, and the more I talk to Tapotli, then we mano to her, and we meet people directly from the Philippines and do the dance on stage. My children meet them. They're just like my lolos and my lolas, my titas and my titos. That was not at all how it was presented to me. It was told to me when I was growing up that Muslims in the Philippines, the southern Philippines, is to be feared. And that's the racism right there. This is all before 9/11, and it got exacerbated because of the Islamophobia that was then spread like the virus. throughout, particularly in the last 4 years. Our own government in the Philippines stopped that count for all indigenous people. Data is important. Why? Because it holds our government and the privileged like us to account, right? We have a responsibility to take care of the minority because we can't just bully them, right? It is not a good idea because what goes around comes around. Then we as a minority in other groups, then we suffer. Christianity is all about inclusion, right? Even in the Muslim religion, Jesus is a prophet. So the way Jesus included everyone, from the sinners to the non-sinners, that's what it's about. So I would like for you to really look at why are we celebrating the people who are darker, right? The Negritos, and the indigenous people of Bangsamoros. Now the Tibolis, I mean, there's a Tibolo tribe that's present right now. What is that bucket that you're filling? You got to look at, because the more you fill that bucket, the more that bucket gets empowered. Now, it's a little more complicated when we come to the United States. Well, Filipino Americans, some say that we're white adjacent. I also say that we're the forgotten Asian Americans. We're so forgotten. Many of you listening to this are nurses. And this is the hard part of being a Filipino, because of utang na loob, because of all of these things that we have in our culture that doesn't fit in the American culture. 4% of the nursing community in the United States are Filipinos, but 30% died of COVID. Why is that? We have this sacrificial way of being that doesn't fit in the American culture. This is an unconscious bias that we have. We also have, because of the Spanish colonial mentality, an unconscious bias against dark people. So I implore all of you to support Black Lives Matter, because when you go for, when we go, okay, I am no longer going to embrace only the white part of me, but the dark part of me, and the least of my brothers and sisters who are Black are being persecuted here in our own country. And that's when diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging really matter. And it's the impact of equity. Do we have the same access to equity? Instead of a melting pot, the other bucket that you got to look at is the mosaic. Instead of a melting pot, look at it as an American mosaic. It's a mixed salad. You got to keep your own flavor. And as fathers and mothers and lolos and lolas, that is our job. I believe it's just our sacred duty to our children that they are proud of who they are. Now look at this. The ati-atihan, I knew about this and I go, wow, all I really could see before was the Spanish part, right? Not the celebration of our African, our connection to Africa. And I've never even been to Ati-Atihan, but I've been to many Spanish events in the Philippines. And this is the Tiboli tribe. And, you know, this is, how are we recognizing the indigenous people in the Philippines and indigenous people here in the United States? This is Kinding Sindaw, educating New Yorkers. And this is my family. Now from the indigenous people all the way to my family, it is, what is beautiful is we all have a place. We all belong here in this land, but we must acknowledge every part of us. Otherwise, we will perish, and the indigenous people will perish. And how sad would that be? Because we have a lot to learn from the indigenous people of the world. This is Kinding Sindaw at the Loidas House. This is the board of directors. come join us. This is we were saying a prayer, food and faith. Boy, doesn't that just bind us all? Doesn't that just unite us all? Instead of having that xenophobia, we have this unification. This is what every world religion teaches. And this is what King Ding Sindaw teaches. And that's the end of this is my wife, myself, and Tita Loida at that fundraiser. It was a really fun thing. And I was very, very proud of my roots, every part of my root, but we got to amplify now the parts that was never acknowledged. That's our goal. And that's why I'm here at Kinding Sindaw. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'll take Q&A later or now. I'll stop sharing.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Antonio. Very deep, very powerful, and moving. Wow, just sorry, it's been a very long week, and this is a lot. Definitely a lot, and very profound. Sorry, folks. I'm usually not this blank as a sheet of paper, but it's as Antonio has mentioned, a lot has happened this week. It's been very jarring for all of us. And now I would like to introduce our next speaker, Tita Loida Nicholas Lewis, and just a brief bio for her. So Loida was born and raised in Sorsogon City, Philippines. She studied at St. Teresa's College in Quezon City and obtained her law degree at UP Diliman. And in 1974, she became the first Asian woman to pass the New York State Bar, making her eligible to practice law both in the Philippines and here in the United States. She began to work for the Law Students Civil Research Council in New York and then as an attorney for the Immigration and Naturalization Service from 1979 until 1987. She has had a major impact as an immigration lawyer, particularly when it comes to the rights of Filipino immigrants living here in America. In 1995, she landed on the cover of Working Woman magazine as top businesswoman in America when she assumed leadership of TLC Beatrice International and steered it to $2 billion revenue. And then she currently chairs the Reginald F. Lewis, or RFL Foundation, which donated to educational institutions while Mr. Lewis was alive, such as Harvard Law School, University of the Philippines, and Howard University, among others. The foundation also supports the Reginald F. Lewis Museum of Maryland, African American History and Culture in Baltimore. She is also one of the founders of the National Federation of Filipino American Associations, or NAFA, which is a civic advocacy group in the U.S. She's also co-founded the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, or ALDEF, and the U.S. Pinoys for Good Governance, or USPGG. And she is founder and president of the Lewis College in the Philippines, which offers quality education from K through 12 all the way to college, as well as TESDA accredited courses to her fellow Sorsoganons. About 30% of college students are on scholarship. So it is my great pleasure and honor to present to you our board advisor here in Kinding Sindaw, Ms. Loida Nicholas Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jerome. And I have to acknowledge the very, very personal and historical explanation of or remarks by Antonio del Rosario, basing it from his name and going backwards and forwards. So thank you, Antonio. And I have to really salute I call her Princess Potri Rangkamanis, because by her tenacity, her vision, her sacrifice, by herself and her family, she has been able to maintain Kinding Sindaw for the past, is it 25, 26, 27 years?
Almost 30.
Almost 30 years. Is that right? Okay, so really to last that long on such tiny budget, although you could at the beginning you saw sponsors, but that's not really much. So I salute you and your team and your family. So while Antonio gave you the background based on a personal, based on his own identity. Let me just say that um, we have to go all the way back, probably at the beginning of the Christian era. Maybe that's too far away. All I want to say is that the Philippines, before the Spaniards came, were disconnected since we have around 7,000 islands. And the Chinese had always come here. There has been always exchange of materials, trade, and we were called Mayi by the Chinese. That's why we have the Mayi Theater, taking it from that historical part of the Philippines. Before that, we did have a form of civilization, culture, arts that was not really, that has been buried when we became colonized by Spain. Why do I say this? Because we presented the only 200 pieces of gold jewelry and ornaments and uh, religious functions, religious items at Asia Foundation in 2013, I think. And you could see they were found before the Spaniards came in the year 12th, 13th century. And the intricateness and the beauty of those gold pieces show that that our islands, especially in Mindanao, had a culture and craft that was very sophisticated. So I just want you to have that in your mind, that we were not up in the Americans love to show that before they came or before the Spaniards came, we were living on the trees like monkeys. That's false. Okay, that's meant to demean our identity as Filipinos. And as you know, those who've studied Filipino history, the real native people in our islands were the Negritos. Where did they come from? I believe they came from Africa. And thousands of years ago, all our islands were connected to each other. And then came the Indonesians, the Malay. That was the Majapahit Empire, another empire came and became and here. And then in around 7th century, the Muslim population coming from Arabia, they inhabited the Philippines. So they were truly, the native Filipinos. And then in the year of exploration by Spain, because they were able to overthrow the Muslim that was occupying Spain, and all the different parts of Spain united under Isabella, Fernando and Isabella, then there is the Spanish reign that they have now to explore the rest of the world, because they thought the world was, and that's the beginning of the world is round. So they wanted to go east by sailing west. And that's when Columbus said, okay, we're going to discover what's out there. And instead of going to the east, they stumbled into America. All right. So that's 1492 was the discovery. It's called discovery, but America has always been there with the native Indians. And then it continued with Magallanes, Ferdinando Magallanes, sent by Queen Isabella and King Fernando and Isabella, sent him, and he's the one who said, okay, I will go around the world to find spices, because spices coming from China was so expensive. And they hit on the Moluccas, and then they came to the Philippines. And you all know the story. Okay, here comes the white conquerors with their muskets, and there is Lapu-Lapu who said, no, you cannot come here. And there is that battle in Mactan, and that was the end of Magellan. 20 years later, in 1521, Magellan came. Around 25 years later, Legazpi came to say, that is ours, all right? We are going, that is ours. And I think at that time, the Pope had divided the world into owned by Spain and owned by the Portuguese. So Brazil became Portuguese, but all the rest became Spanish, and that was the Spanish regime. And so the Philippines was colonized or conquered, although the conquer is really questionable because they really just conquered Luzon, parts of Visayas. They never conquered Mindanao, where the Muslim community is. And so what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that history, the colonization, came to the Philippines as it came to other parts in South America and colonized or changed our mentality into being that Spain, being European, being white is beautiful because they have the power, they were ruling us. And for 350 years, that reached into our subconscious that we are brown, we're not beautiful. You are fairer, you are beautiful. So that's the first thing. And of course, we accepted the Spanish. If you spoke Spanish, then you belong to the ruling class. And as I said, during all this time, our indigenous people in the mountain province, in Mindanao, have not been subjugated. And so, okay, going back now to, okay, the Spanish time, and then America started to extend its might. They are new in the coming, they are only 200 years old, from the time of 1776. But because of the immigration, because of freedom, because of education, it started to rise up. And during the World War II, when America was forced to join the battle in the Pacific, when Japan, started to bomb Pearl Harbor and the rest of Asia, then the Americans joined the war of World War II. And no, I forgot. I forgot. The Spanish was waning. We were going to, our Filipino people, especially in the north, Diego Silang, we started to say, we cannot be enslaved. We should not be enslaved. And so there is the Gumborsa, the 3 priests who were killed because they were starting to think independently. And then the middle class and the upper middle class of the Filipino society went to Madrid, went to Spain to say, we have to talk to them to give us some rights. And that's the movement of our Filipino, heroes, Gregorio del Pilar, Jose Rizal, Juan Luna. They went to Spain to try to influence the Spanish Cortes or Congress to give us some freedom, to see. That's all. And that's when Jose Rizal, while he was in Spain or Germany, wrote his 2 novels, Noli Me Tangere, followed by El Filibusterismo. And what is Noli Me Tangere really? Why was it considered so seditious, so revolutionary? Because Noli Me Tangere in Latin means do not touch. Meaning to say the book says there are certain things that should not be mentioned. And that in that book fueled the Philippine revolt, the Philippine Revolution, that ended again in tragedy. Why? Because the founder of the Katipunan, Andres Bonifacio, and General Emilio Aguinaldo were at odds. Who will have the power? Who will become number 1? And sadly, Andres Bonifacio was killed by the more powerful, the more educated, the more landed gentry that was represented by General Emilio Aguinaldo. Okay, so while that was going on, here comes America, and there was a combination between America and the revolutionaries. And of course, what happened? General Dewey said, don't enter Manila, okay? We will take care of it. But we didn't know that at that time, Spain and America were talking already to each other to end the Spanish-American War. And so they were prohibited from entering Intramuros when they were really gaining ground as a revolutionary. And Dewey comes in, and then in the battle of the so-called Battle of Manila Bay, bang, 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 there was no ship destroyed, no one died, and the Spanish waved their flag, surrender. But that was really more, that was really a farce. There was already something that they have agreed on. Spain will sell the Philippine Islands for $20 million. And that's how America came. Now, America says, all right, it is divine destiny that we will educate and bring the Filipinos into the 19th century, because it was 1898. And what happened? Our heroes were exiled to Hong Kong, and our people and the American soldiers, really, there was an intention on the part of the American government to colonize us, not to liberate us. And the Filipino-American War started. It was called an insurrection because we were already a colony. And how did it happen? There were Filipinos, Filipino soldiers on this bridge, and they were not supposed to enter. And here is this American soldier speaking English. Halt! Stop! How do the Filipino know what that is? So they fired on these Filipino soldiers, and that's the start of the Filipino-American War. Again, tragedy. We lost that war, and that's when America came to colonize us for 50 years. So Horacio de la Costa has said, we are a little bit schizophrenic because we were indigenous, or we were by ourselves. The Spaniards came, so we were in a convent for 350 years. And then the Americans came, so we were in Hollywood for 50 years. And then we had an independence, so we don't know what we are. Spaniards, Filipino, Asian. All right. So that's sort of like in 15 minutes, the history of the Philippines. And so why am I very interested, and why am I here with Kinding Sindaw? Because Kinding Sindaw is the sort of the pure Filipino. They have never been conquered, in a manner of speaking. So that when you see their dances, when you hear the music, when you hear their chant, it's almost bring you back to primeval Philippines. And they are part of us. And so we, as Filipino Americans who are here enjoying the benefit of American freedom, society, and progress, although thank God these 4 years in the twilight zone with Trump is over. We have Joe Biden his mentality culminated in that insurrection in Capitol Hill. 2021 is going to be fine. But for us Filipino Americans, and for us who understand what we are about in Kinding Sindaw, I want you to give full support to Kinding Sindaw, because it's the only one here in the United States that nourishes, that promotes, that gives information of that part of the Filipino people that truly has never been conquered. And so this is a long about way of saying, let's support Kinding Sindaw, because Kinding Sindaw is us. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that. I wanted to turn it over to Patty, who's helping us for the Q&As. If anyone else has other questions and stuff, feel free to drop it down.
I just want to say thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tita Loida. Thank you, Antonio. This is such a very moving night, and this is history by itself. Hopefully, we can write it more in a publication one day. Thank you, and Assalamu alaikum.
Hi, so we have one question so far, but please do put your questions in the chat. And I have one from Grace from earlier that was for Antonio. So I'll just go ahead and repeat it. I'll also put it in the chat so people can read it as well. But Antonio, the question from Grace was, what made you suddenly realize that you were more than your Spanish last name? What's missing is a many-part question. And also your education or experience in the Philippines. Although tonight's focus is the Philippines and its indigenous culture, are you aware that there are also other Christian groups in other countries that have suffered much from the dominant Islamic culture? Many established religious faiths have had their share of being an oppressor and being oppressed. So what do you think that is happening?
Thank you for that, Grace. Is that you, Grace? Is Asagra? Asagra, I see you now. Hi, how are you? It's good to meet you. That's what I love about Zoom. Tita Loida the other night, it's like, don't we just love Zoom? And I do love Zoom because I get to meet people. Most of the people that I've known the past year, I've never met in person. So this is the power of Zoom, and hello, Philippines. I do think that happens because of greed. Corruption is part of the human temptation, the human condition. That's why I believe education is important. I am all about teaching my children, our community, the world, that we must not. But there are people, like for instance, I do know about Christians who are oppressed. There are groups of Christians in China, for instance, who are being tortured and executed and oppressed, and also in Egypt, as you know, bombings in Christian churches, and many all over the world. And it happens because it's the same reason why the Capitol, and 5 people died. The Capitol had a terrorist attack. They wanted to take away the votes, the 8 million votes. They wanted to invalidate it. And guess where those votes belong to? Black folks. It's the same thing as white supremacy. So the Christian supremacy, the Islamic supremacy, or whatever it is that is motivating them, those people who are oppressing others, it is about greed. It is, even The Hobbit and the Two Towers, and all Harry Potter, right? The Precious, all of these things. When gold and money and everything is in front of you, it's very hard to turn down. But because of my education, because of my values, because of my family, because of this community, because of people I look up to, Tita Potri and Tita Loida, it is, there was an interview that was asked, it was before Christmas, Tita Loida was asked, why don't you just travel and go shopping, right? And, and Tita Loida goes, then what? How can I live with myself when there are people near me, a block away from me, starving, when there are people in the Philippines suffering from a typhoon, right? There are people who are uneducated, with blessings, with privilege comes responsibility. And this is what education about. This is why I think religion matters. But you can also use religion, as you all know, in the past 4 years, right? It doesn't matter if I paid a porn star. It doesn't matter if I raped women. The evangelist, the Christian right, will side with me, Trump, because why? Because I am against a couple other issues that they like. They will ignore all those stuff because of greed. It's ego. And this is what our religion teaches. I hope I'm answering that question. But that's why. That's when I discovered that myself. I go, okay, I'm proud of the white part in me, and all my white friends. I have nothing against white folks, but it is time to amplify the part of us that is dark skinned, that is from a culture that is not the majority, that is not mainstream, to amplify brown voices, black voices. It is time to do that. This is the time, everyone. I'm curious to know, Tita Loida, how did you teach your children, Christina and Leslie, when, you know, the part of them that were Filipinos? I remember when your first two grandchildren came, and they liked the kilikili and all the different words that they were, you know, I was reading about that. How did you, because they're multiracial, how do you reconcile that, teaching them about their culture from both sides? Because my wife is Italian, right? Totally different Northern Italians, and the oppression they went through in the north of Italy with Slovenians and the Austrians, totally the kind of discrimination they went through, because she also speaks Slovenian. I mean, not her, but her people. And there were nationalist Italians who go, you cannot speak another language in Italy, and they suffered oppression. But you know, that's something else that I'm teaching my kids. But I'm curious to know, in your first of all, I hope I answered Ms. Grace's question. But Ms. Loida, if you don't mind, could you share how do you grapple with multiracial family?
Okay, I think I'll answer also. Grace has a question on the chat, sort of similar to yours. I think it embeds very much on how I was brought up. My father was poor, he was orphan, and by dint of effort and his own became, I mean, he was able to, you know, become a very successful businessman. We had this furniture, Nickfer. And when we were growing up, I had two brothers ahead of me, and he was very strict with them. I was the first daughter, and somehow his attitude to me was, you can do no wrong, okay? You can do anything you want. So growing up with that kind of training, okay, you can be successful. You can do whatever you want. You're going to be a lawyer. So that, and also because he was poor and he had to struggle, he had never even said, don't go with them, they are poor. Or don't go with them, they are dark. Or, you know, both my father and mother, in a way, raised us egalitarian. We never identified people according to their skin color or according to their economic. So within my mind, I really took we are all equal in the eyes of God. In a way, that's how I grew up. And so you know, I went to UP and finished school, and my father sent me on a round the world trip. And so how did I meet my husband? On a blind date. And even from the start, when I was going to talk about, you know, being Black, I was going to talk about, you know, Muhammad Ali. He immediately eliminated that and said, I'm international. So what does that mean? Don't deal with me because I'm Black, because I'm, you know, no, we deal with each other as man and woman. And so how do I deal now? We have two children, two girls. So when they were growing up, at least as far as I and my husband are concerned, we are not saying color was not talked about. You're dark, you're bright. But they get it from the America. America is so racist. You cannot, you know, so it's all over important. And of course, the history of slavery. So how did I bring in multinational? I decided from the beginning, because they are African Americans, that the Filipino part, unlike Antonio, the Filipino part is, I am Filipino. You know I'm Filipino, I came from Sorsogon. but you are African Americans. Why? Because nobody will think of them as Filipino. The society will consider them African Americans. So you're black and you're proud. So that's how I deal with it. I identify them as African Americans because that's what America will look at them. They'll never say, no, 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 that's mother is Filipino. No, they are African Americans. But raising them up, it's not, no, we never discuss color of skin. Are you doing your work as a student? Are you respecting your elders? Those two things. Do your work, do the best, respect your elders. And that's how I raised them. As a result, both of them went to Harvard, cum laude, and they have their own specific likes. Did I answer you? Did I answer you, Antonio and Grace? Okay, thank you.
Yes, you did. Thank you, Tita Loida. Amazing.
Thank you, Tita Loida. You are actually one of my heroes. I kept the picture of you that I read from New York Times for a long time.
Oh my God, that's 25 years ago.
Yes, I still have it. And my mother is from Sorsogon as well.
No, you said Diaz?
Yeah, no, that's my godmother. But my mother is from Sorsogon, Gubat, Sorsogon.
But
so when I learned about you here, I traced you. And my godmother said, no, she's my classmate. And then I have another distant aunt, last name is Sunga. She knows you. She used to go to you to New York. So it's my pleasure to.
Yes, I know both of them. Yes, give them my best regards, please.
Thank you.
Such a small world. I wanted to follow up with Tita Loida's comments. What is incredible to celebrate? Yes, what happened Wednesday on Epiphany, no less, was very sad. But I think it is the purging of our country, because there's that, and then we've got the same day Georgia. Thank you, everyone. And then let's not forget, like Tita Loida was saying, you will be seen as African American. Look at our vice president-elect. She is seen as African American, the first Black woman in the White House. This woman is amazing, but at the same time, and this is where I would love America to go to, is the multicultural blood that she has. She's celebrated by the South Asians, right? She's celebrated by the stepmoms. She's the first stepmom. She's celebrated.
Jewish daughter, Jewish stepdaughters.
Yeah, exactly. The first Jewish gentleman, second gentleman. I mean, there's so many things. And I think, sometimes you just don't see it anymore. You don't mention it anymore. I think this is where we'd like to go. But right now, we just need to now amplify. So I keep saying this because if there was one message for our Filipino brothers and sisters here in America, is stop being white adjacent. We got to now be proud of that part of us who is dark, who is brown. We need to celebrate that. We need to celebrate our indigenous people and our past, because that's the only way we can be whole. Right? We are schizophrenic, but how do you heal that fractured part? Is to acknowledge every part of us, amplify that part. Yes, stop using this Filipinos, stop using this whitening cream. Go watch The Kingmaker. Stop supporting those who are killing the least among us, the poor people, and the kind of political corruption that's happening over there. It breaks my heart. So I really think this is the time. This is the time. An election is coming up in the Philippines. And I really wish, stop going for the the strong man, right? There's now we you know, a lot of the things I researched for my presentation came from a guy named Nestor. I forget his last name now. He got his doctorate in indigenous people, and he's in the Philippines. And I was like, wow, we are now in the Philippines full of intellectuals, full of people who are incredible. Let us put our government, heal those, punish those who stole from us. Let's stop rewarding. Look at what happened here in the past 4 years. Finally, we are now going, okay, we recognize, look, I'm in real estate. Trump is in real estate. So I knew that, you know, you can't run, right? I'm going to lie. Okay, this is a studio, but you know, it's just a 1-bedroom. It works in real estate. Okay, but not as a public servant. This is a sacred oath that people take. You can't run the government like it's a business. The same in the Philippines. You can't run it just for the rich. We have a duty to the people who are poor, the people who are not as educated, the people who are the indigenous people, and you know, people have died. Many people have died too, so that we can have this kind of government in the Philippines. So, my mga kababayan, let us think, please. It has been heartbreaking. There's been 40,000 people who've been murdered in the Philippines. This is Black Lives Matter is not a political issue. The people who are being killed in the Philippines with no due process is not a political issue. It is a human rights issue. Both are. I'll get off my.
In that note, thank you very much. It's a very strong conclusion for tonight. And Antonio said about human rights. So we still have the bill that in Congress that has to be supported by our congressman and senator. So let's work on that it will be passed, because it will influence a lot the Philippines. So thank you very much for this very powerful night. Tita Loida, you remain to be our fairy godmother. And Antonio, you are our flag bearer. Let's go forward, charge. And thank you very much, Vivian, Jerome, and Patty for driving this Rinayong tonight in the beautiful direction of the wind. And there are announcements. Actually, I just want to mention thank you to Zenny for attending, Jojo, Jojo Kelroy, and I can't see any more. Grace, thank you very much for attending and your questions. KGO, Kigo,
Tenaida, Patrick.
Tinaida, Magnay Banson, the phone banker, and the daughter, Marinette. We have Glenn, we have Patrick Elizalde, Mirna Gutierrez, Margaret Guzman. Thank you very much. And you will continue with the announcement. Take it away.
I'll do the announcements. But yeah, here are just I guess in addition to some of these links, we'll put in more when we upload the video, so that after this you are able to go back, so that we can continue to take action moving forward. Because a lot of things that we said here is definitely something that we need to build up on. And yeah, Happy New Year to everyone. In addition to the Rinayung series, we also have weekly weekend dance classes. You can scan that QR code to get more information about that. We have one tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I believe Lynn is also going to be teaching in that one. Oh, she's not here anymore, but she will be there if you want to catch her again tomorrow. I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining tonight. And like everything mentioned here, this is just one step moving forward. There's a lot of action plans we definitely need to take, but having these conversations continue and go live is definitely a start. Before we do leave for tonight, I think I just want to take a screenshot of everyone who is here. So if you're comfortable sharing your screen, sharing your camera, sorry, please do so. Okay.
You have to
All right.
take out the announcements.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. I have like a gallery view so I can see everyone. All right. So whenever everyone is ready, 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you again.
And
Have a
we
good
have to
night.
end the
Or
night with our salutation, with our Kinding Sindaw salutation. In honor of our ancestors who created and transmitted this tradition to us, with open hearts we like to take them in mind, body, and soul. And with humility we bow as you use it to empower us as we walk our path. Maraming salamat po. Assalamualaikum. Thank you very much. And have a very, very strong, healthy, resilient, happy new year. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you,
Salamat
everyone.
po. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.